Star Wars, best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, a UK-based Star Wars podcast with in-depth discussions and analysis sprinkled with some silliness. I am the Geordie Jedi Pete.
I'm Jason Hondo Ling.
And I'm Star Wars Iain.
When we are back with a brand new episode of Star Wars, we're going to be breaking down 4 Star Wars news stories that have hit the news this week. We're then going to be talking about what we've been watching lately, Star Wars wise, and then we'll finish up with a little bit of housekeeping, which will include our fact of the episode. So stay tuned for all that. But as we get started, the first news story up is about a new Star Wars audiobook, Star Wars Padawan's Pride, which is an all-new canon audiobook. It's available from Audible now, written by Brian Q. Miller and narrated by Kevin Kemp. And it's part of their Star Wars Adventures Audible original series. And this sort of came out of nowhere. I certainly hadn't seen it was planned or in production or anything, but it's come out of nowhere. And one of the big things is that it's sort of Obi-Wan Kenobi with his Padawan, Anakin Skywalker, but in the artwork for it, it's very much sort of the teenage Jake Lloyd style Anakin Skywalker. So that's sort of the time frame we're setting, which is really cool to see artwork of Jake Lloyd as, you know, slightly older than we see him in The Phantom Menace, which is really cool. The synopsis is Jedi Knight Obi-Wan Kenobi and his Padawan Anakin Skywalker star in this thrilling galactic adventure set 3 years after the events of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. When a Republic spy goes missing on the moons of Val, the Jedi Council asks Obi-Wan and Anakin to infiltrate an underground pod racing circuit run by a crime boss believed to be holding the spy prisoner. With Anakin posing as a hotshot racer, I don't know about posing because he is a hotshot racer, and Obi-Wan as his attendant, tension between the two threaten to run even higher than usual. But when Obi-Wan is forced to leave Val, Anakin is on his own as he faces a series of increasingly treacherous races that will determine his fate and that of the spy. Master and apprentice must use all their Jedi skills in this action-packed tale of cutthroat competition, deadly deception, and, ultimately, what it means to be a Padawan. And, again, you can listen to Padawan's Pride. It's over at Amazon now and on Audible. When you hear that, Iain, sort of, you know, how do you feel about getting sort of audiobooks that are telling sort of, you know, some of the stories in between episode 1 and episode 2, you know, and how do you feel about it focusing on pod racing, which is, of course, very much in Anakin Skywalker as a logger?
Yeah, no, really excited by that. Like you, I was completely caught off guard by this. I haven't had a chance to listen to it or anything yet, but it's really cool to see more. I think the in between the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones is rife for storytelling. We don't have a lot in that time period, and to see Anakin back in and amongst pod racing is pretty cool as well. Like you said, he's not really a poser. He's won the Boonta Reeve Classic, so he is. I wonder if he has any name recognition in this book, because people should know who won the Boonta Reeve, and I'm pretty sure it's a big race. So yeah, no, it's pretty cool to get like a shadow drop and a new story, and I'll give it a listen when I get a spare moment in the weeks to come.
Jason, are you a fan of Star Wars audiobooks? And if so, are you going to give this one a listen?
I have to admit, it's something I haven't. I've listened to a couple, and I need to get into it more. And I've been thinking about this, and this could be a good starter because I think this is a fairly short one at about 4 hours. I read. I like the idea of a story about Anakin and Obi-Wan pre-Clone Wars, and obviously the growth of Anakin from Phantom Menace to Attack of the Clones. So I think it'd be quite an interesting story to go through. And as you say, bringing in the pod racing, which everyone loved from Phantom Menace, that's quite a clever idea. And it's quite interesting that obviously Anakin's going to be the driver and the racer, and obviously Obi-Wan's going to be very much his assistant, which is completely juxtaposition. So it'll be interesting to see if they play with that. I think it's becoming obvious that the characters of Anakin and Obi-Wan after the Obi-Wan series and also, people have fallen back in love with Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. So I think more stories about the characters in this timeline make sense to me. And it's quite interesting that this is one of the ones that's coming out. And I love anything that's got a bit of action in it as well.
Definitely. I think for me, when you think about, I think it was earlier this year, obviously when, we heard that, that Jake Lloyd, who portrayed Anakin Skywalker in The Phantom Menace, was sort of doing a lot better with his health. And, his mother sort of shared a really cool story about, how he's doing better with his mental health and he's been able to enjoy Star Wars and had some Star Wars figures there. And I think Jake Lloyd sees this artwork and listens to this book. I think, it's going to, again, bring back more sort of fond memories of his time as Anakin Skywalker. And it was a huge part being sort of the first look at Anakin Skywalker, not as Darth Vader, if that makes sense. So I'm glad it's depicted this type of Anakin. Obviously, we have had the comic book Obi-Wan Anakin, trade paperback one-off series, which is set closer to the Attack of the Clones timeline, but it sort of does show you again sort of a Palpatine creeping on a younger Anakin, shall we say, getting in his head, grooming him for the future. But I'm pleased to say in this one we're going to find out about the tensions between Obi-Wan and Anakin sort of running here quite high. Probably the first time we're going to see them running high at such a young age of their relationship. And also how we're going to see Anakin fend for himself once Obi-Wan has to leave the planet Fall. So I don't listen to too many audiobooks, but I might have to add this one to the list. One thing I do hope for is that they make the audiobooks into sort of script books, which is done with a couple of the High Republic ones, which I do really enjoy when they do that. And I certainly pay me money for that in hardback, but only time will tell. Iain, I know you've listened to a couple of audiobooks before, Star Wars wise. Sort of, for the ones I've listened to, it's like the production value of the Star Wars audiobooks that sets them aside from other audiobooks with a lot of sound and music going in now. I assume this one will be the same, but sort of what's your thoughts on how Star Wars audiobooks can be a lot higher production level and get really in the imagination than other ones?
Yeah, they really are. They have a lot, like you said, they have a lot of sound effects. They have a lot of good production value to them. They my favourite one they've done was Dooku Jedi Lost. I've even got the script book for that. It's anyone who hasn't listened to a Star Wars audiobook before, I highly recommend Dooku Jedi Lost. It's really, really good. It tells the story of a young Count Dooku all the way up to him leaving the Jedi Order, which is a really, really fun story. Good stuff with Cypher Diaz and all that type of stuff. Yeah, no, I've listened to I'm not the greatest audiobook listener just because I don't really have the attention span sometimes for it. Sometimes I let it go for a couple of minutes and I think, oh, I've missed what we're saying here. I'm much better reading than I am listening. But I do enjoy them. Like I said, Dooku Jedi Lost, I was hooked. And if anyone has a Spotify account, then you can get them on Spotify as well. A lot of the Star Wars audiobooks are on Spotify as well, not just Audible.
So you got to check those ones out. And this one is Star Wars Padawan's Pride. It's an audiobook. It's available now. Definitely audible through Amazon. Moving on to our next topic. And it is Rancho Obi-Wan related. There is a upcoming fundraiser taking place on Saturday, October 5th at the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle, Washington. You can get your tickets for the first Rancho Obi-Wan in-person fundraiser since 2018. Now, if you go to Rancho Obi-Wan, just Google that, you'll find it. But yeah, obviously, news topic that probably, for us is certainly, all based in England. We're probably not going to be going to this fundraiser, but I know for me, whenever I'm at Star Wars Celebration, I try to pick up a Rancho Obi-Wan hoodie or t-shirt, which I love doing, putting some pounds their way. I think what Rancho Obi-Wan do is absolutely fantastic, and for those who don't know, Rancho Obi-Wan's basically started off as sort of one-man Star Wars collection, which was huge. It was available to be sort of viewed as a museum. Since then, it's became a non-profit organisation, as Steve Sansweet who was the original collector, and it was his collection. He moved into a sort of job in Lucas Relations, I believe. And it became a non-profit, and not just as it all of his collection, but new things get added from other people. People donate things, and I think Lucasfilms often send things there to be on display. The place is huge. I don't know what your thoughts are on Rancho Obi-Wan, Jason, but just tell us what your thoughts are on Rancho Obi-Wan, and one day do you love to go?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, Rancho Obi-Wan. I know a fair bit about it. Because obviously working with the guys at Jedi News. James is very good friends with Steve. And he was actually out at Rancho Obi-Wan with Steve recently, or earlier in the year. It's something that I did a bit during lockdown. They did quite a few videos and tours at Rancho Obi-Wan, and I watched those with the kids, and it was really interesting. Steve's a really funny and cool guy as well. I had a little bit of correspondence with him when we were doing a 50th birthday video for James, and he kindly did a little video for that. And it was it's somewhere that I've always dreamed of going, because not only do it's got a lot of Star Wars history there. Steve worked for Lucasfilm, I believe, as you said, in the market um, public relations sort of side of things. So I know he's got a lot of the posters, a lot of the merchandise. And I know he's accrued a lot of stuff over the years, which for me as a Star Wars fan is quite interesting. I like going through on Facebook Marketplace and looking at all the different stuff that I saw today something I was tempted to go for, which was like from when the Phantom Menace was out, those poster tubes where you had a tube full of just basically artwork for you to colour in. And there was someone selling those, and I have to admit I was tempted to try and get hold of those and stuff like that. And that, I believe, is the sort of stuff that they've got there, and obviously this massive collection. I know Steve's put a lot into building it up, and the team that he's got there. So obviously this fundraiser, which I know because of COVID they stopped doing for a while when they were doing online sort of stuff. So this is the sort of thing that's quite vital to preserve that history and what they've built there at Rancho Obi-Wan. So it's one day I'd love to go over there because I think it'd be a bit of an Aladdin's cave.
It certainly is an Aladdin's cave, I'll tell you that, and it's everything that us Star Wars fans dream of. Just the press release for the event is, we invite you to join us for our first fundraiser since 2018 and our first ever fundraiser outside Rancho Obi-Wan in California. Your support enables us to preserve this a very special collection for you and generations to come. Rancho Obi-Wan founder Steve Sansweet will anchor a presentation on Rancho Obi-Wan's exciting plans for the future, including an audience question and answer session. Most MoPOP galleries will be open, allowing attendees to experience a wide variety of pop culture memorabilia, including several Star Wars props and costumes. In addition to tickets for the main event at MoPOP, see the tickets tab above to add on a ticket to tour the collection of Rancho Obi-Wan board member Gus Lopez or the collection of Rancho Obi-Wan board member Lisa Stevens and Vic Wirtz. These rare tours also include a sampling of wine from Skywalker vineyards. So, there we go. If you are buying tickets at the website there's a lot of extras you can add on. Rancho Obi-Wan items will be for sale and can be pre-ordered in the merchandise tab above. So, not quite sure what type of Rancho Obi-Wan merchandise will be available with your tickets. I think anybody in the US would probably love to go to this, especially if they're close to Seattle. Me, myself, I've got a Rancho Obi-Wan t-shirt and a hoodie that was wonderful, so I'd definitely recommend doing that. And there's also, if you cannot attend, you can always become a member of Rancho Obi-Wan, where they send you a little fan package out. And it's just a way of keeping the donations going into Rancho Obi-Wan. And I do believe that Rancho Obi-Wan does have a Guinness World Record, certainly in 2014, for having the largest Star Wars memorabilia collection on the planet and in history. So I don't think that's been beaten. Ian, I know you're similar to me. You know, you do love collecting Star Wars. I don't know how much you know about Rancho Obi-Wan, but like, how much does that's I think just proves how awesome Star Wars is, that this non-profit exists, and it's like the largest collection of Star Wars memorabilia ever on the planet. So just what's your thoughts on the fact that that exists, and one day would you love to go?
Yeah, it's pretty cool that they have this collection just dedicated to Star Wars. I'd absolutely love to go one day. I don't know if it'll happen in the near future or even in the mid-term future. Hopefully, I'll get there one day. But no, it's good to know that there will be obviously a repository of Star Wars stuff for future generations to come, and it'll only obviously keep adding to it as we get more shows and more characters that everyone loves. So yeah, no, it's really exciting. I would love to go, like I said, and hopefully one day I will. But yeah, no, it's cool that we have that level of collection somewhere in the world.
It certainly is. Silva, who is Star Wars Thrifting Online, who has obviously appeared on this podcast before on Star Wars, she does volunteer there. It's on her doorstep, and whenever I hear her talk about sort of going there and working there, it always seems like such a wonderful place to be. Our next news story is sort of funny, also sort of tragic, depending on which side of the coin you're on. But 7-year-old Loki Skywalker Mowbray was refused a British passport due to copyright concerns. To run you through this story, so the family have spoken of their ordeal after their 7-year-old son named Loki Skywalker Mowbray was refused a passport due to copyright issues, with the Home Office telling them to either change his name or get permission from the copyright owner, which is of course these days Disney. Now, since this story broke, I do believe that it's been rectified. So the child in question was born on May the 4th, which is celebrated around the world as Star Wars Day. Thus, his parents felt it was a fitting tribute to give him the middle name related to the franchise, which has been a big part of sort of his life since childhood. In the email, sort of to the family detailing the refusal, the Home Office said that Loki's name contained a name which relates to a trademark or copyright, and therefore not issue a passport. But the family then confirmed that on Friday the Home Office would be issuing a passport. So I'm not quite sure what's changed, but we do know that the family's application was being processed. They apologised for the delay, and it was later confirmed it had approved the application. So now that they've got that passport, it is indeed ready for a much-needed holiday for the family. I find this very funny how I don't understand how it's copyright infringement when unless he's trying to sell merchandise as Skywalker, like that would be a problem. But to just be called Skywalker and be getting your passport so you can travel the world, you're not making any money off of that. You're not using it in any sort of. You're not using the trademark in any way. So it's very strange. And I wonder if that's what's happened. I wonder if that's the readers actually were being quite silly here. But yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Ian, on I suppose naming children after things related to pop culture? And obviously we all love Star Wars, so we might want to use Star Wars names in our lives. And what's your thoughts on the fact that it was sort of denied before them being rectified?
I think it's a bit of an overreach from the Home Office to turn around and say, "Oh, you need to change your kid's name." I think that's a bit weird. But no, I think it's a bit ridiculous that you have to seek copyright permission to use a name. Like you said, he's not using the name to sell merchandise. He's not using it to game the system and use it to obviously make money. He's using it obviously just as a tribute to his favourite franchise, which is fine by me. I think it's a bit of a gross overreach for the Home Office to say either change the child's name or get us a copyright notice from Disney. That's a bit weird. But yeah, no, I'm happy it's been rectified and he was able to go on his holiday.
Definitely. Jason, obviously you have children. What's your thoughts on the fact the Home Office have first of all denied it based on a trademark or copyright, and then obviously seems to have U-turned that pretty quick and authorised the passport?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is. I think that I did a bit of reading on this, and I think the Home Office have actually got sort of procedures in place that they flag up stuff like this. But I think it's possibly that it was someone a little bit overzealous at the Home Office reacted to it, which I think has happened before with a Game of Thrones character that someone else named their child and it got flagged up. And I think that they do say that they should seek permission for the use of the name, but I think it is just a common sense thing. Let's face it, I don't think Disney and Lucasfilm are going to get upset about a kid being called Skywalker. If they were trying to sell branded stuff as Skywalker, I think, yeah, there'd definitely be a case. So it's just one of these funny little stories, obviously stressful for the family, I should think. And maybe, I know there was another story about a family that were going to call their kid Anakin, but decided they wouldn't, or they changed their mind because they thought he'd get bullied. Which, maybe it's some, when you name your kids, I have to admit, my youngest, Jess, we picked out a name to begin with. And it wasn't until she was actually born that we changed our minds. And I literally, the midwife said to me, have you got a name for your daughter? I said, I have, but to me, she doesn't look like a daisy. So, yeah, I think possibly Jess will probably forgive me and quite happily be called Jessica now. So, yeah, it's one of those things. It's something maybe you need to think about, maybe do a bit of research. Could be a warning to people. But in the long run, it's not doing anyone any harm.
It certainly isn't. I think who are the Home Office to decide what's a trademark and what's not? I think it's very much not in their mandate to decide what's trademarked and what's what's being used, licensed, and so forth. Our last news story is in regards to Skeleton Crew. It's obviously coming this December to Disney Plus, the new Star Wars original series. And Entertainment Weekly had a first look at some space pirates and of Jude Law's character. So yeah, Entertainment Weekly has an exclusive first look at these space pirates, as well as another exclusive image of Jude Law's Jod Na Nawood. And yeah, also spoke to Skeleton Crew creators John Watts and Christopher Ford sort of about what's going to be going on. And, Ford was very excited about the space pirates. He's like, those are pirates, the space pirates. And yeah, not just any space pirates, but there's one called Urkel, there's one called Jaleel White, looking to be cyborg-esque as Gunter. There's also the unsavory Vane, who we've seen before, so that'll be pretty cool. Obviously, you give Din Djarin and Grief Karga quite a hard time, the Mandalorian. And then probably my favourite of all of them is one called Brutus. And he's very much like a wolf man, he's like a wolf man mixed with Pirates of the Caribbean, is how he looks. And it looks absolutely terrifying, but also really, really cool. Skeleton Crew is taking place in the same time frame as the Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka, so it's sort of after the fall of the Empire, but before the rise of the First Order, which is probably why Vane fits so nicely into this. And obviously, looking at the picture of Jude Law, doesn't look too much like a Jedi, though I've heard he could be a Jedi. He's very much dressed like a smart pirate, and he does indeed have a pistol with him. I don't know if you've seen these images, Ian, and sort of what were your thoughts on the pirates first, and then Jude Law? I think you're muted, Ian, if you are talking.
I really did enjoy the pirates. I think there's so much room to be told with like Star Wars pirates and that. Obviously, one of my favourite characters is the legendary Hondo Ohnaka. Hopefully we see him if there's pirates involved. But yeah, the wolf character, I believe they're called a Shistavanen. They're from there. There's originally one in the cantina in the original trilogy when they go to Mos Eisley in A New Hope, so that's cool. Obviously we see Vane again, who, like you said, we've met in Mando season 3. He obviously did a runner when his Boss Gorian Shard's ship went down. So that'd be cool. I take it this will probably be post Mandalorian season 3, and this might be his new crew. Maybe he's the boss. Yeah, no, really cool. I like how they look. The aliens look really good. You can also see I think it's a Gran in there as well. I think the aliens look really good. I like when Star Wars uses more aliens. Like I said, it's set in a galaxy far, far away, and sometimes there's a lot of humans and not a lot of aliens, but that looks really good. And yeah, I can't remember Jude Law's character's name. It's like Jod something, but yeah, he looks cool as well. Very interesting to see where his character takes us. I don't buy for 1 second he's a Jedi. I think he's not. He might be a Force user, but I don't think he was a Jedi. He comes across as like that con man, scoundrel type of character. So yeah, I am looking forward to the show and seeing where this obviously different Star Wars adventure will take us.
Indeed. For me, I think it's very obviously we've seen sort of that teaser trailer, which is very much like Amblin Entertainment, suburbs of America / Star Wars. And it looked like that, but then these images here look very much Star Wars, Star Wars. Like I said, this group of pirates that we can see, we can see Vane, we can see Brutus, but we can see the man with the sort of the cyborg eye. There's Noiris from Jabba's palace, that species who have like the 3 eyes. There's one of them. It looks like one of the eyes has been chopped off. So maybe an eye patch wearing Iris type character. So yeah, they look very dangerous. Look very cool. A lot of these pistols I'm seeing in this image are almost like Pirates of the Caribbean-esque pistols. Like something from like a Alexander Dumas novel. Like a musketeer pistol. And then again on this image of Jude Law as Jod. Again, sort of a curved handle, old school pistol. Now, I'm sure they'll fire lasers and not musket balls, but what are your thoughts on the design of that, Ian? Just like on how the blasters seem to be like something we haven't seen before in Star Wars?
Yeah, I like it. Like you said, we haven't seen that before. Ever since we've seen pirates in like the Clone Wars and that, they've just used regular blasters. But it's an interesting concept, and like I said, it fits with the theme of pirates. It's quite good. It'd be quite interesting to see like an old school pistol fire bolts, which I assume it does. Like you said, I don't think they're going to fire ball bearings and that at people. So yeah, no, I like the design. It fits. It does feel very Star Wars. It does feel very piratey, and yeah, it does look. I think the designs look really good.
Jason, what's your thoughts on these images from Entertainment Weekly? I suppose first the pirates, and then of the very handsome devil himself, Jude Law.
Yeah, obviously, this is a series that I'm really beginning to start to look forward to. Obviously, Vane is a character we've already come across. I am definitely hoping that Hondo could make his first live action appearance. I think this story fits perfectly, but the fact that it hasn't been announced doesn't surprise me, because I do wonder if maybe it's one of those little Easter egg fun things, a bit like Zeb was with The Mandalorian. So I'm keeping my fingers, toes, and everything else crossed. The pirates themselves, obviously, yeah, the actual effects, I like the fact that they look very much original era. That they're in keeping with Star Wars. They're using character or species that we've seen before. Jaleel White, obviously, is an actor who I've heard of, and I remember, obviously back in the 80s, he was famous, I believe, for the character of Steve Urkel, who in America is a really, really big thing. So I think he's having him in this series. I know he was a very much child performer. Now, obviously, as an adult, getting his chance to be in Star Wars, I'm sure, is a really big thing. And he looks like a really cool cyborg type character. The flintlock type pistols, I really like this. I've seen this done by some of the fans and like cosplayers for like the Mando Mercs and that. Because obviously, with the original Star Wars, a lot of the weapons were actually real weapons that they modified. So it's really fitting that the pirates have got the flintlock style pistols that have obviously been modified to make them more more like blasters and that. So I'm really looking forward to those, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some replicas flying around that I'm sure the kids are going to love to play with. Now, as for Jude Law, yeah, he's a really interesting character. Obviously, there's been a lot said about him being a Jedi, but he does look more like a pirate in this. But could this be, obviously, this is a time when the Jedi are hiding, so could this be his way of hiding from the Imperial or everyone else? And, could that be what his mission is, to keep himself safe? He's gone into being a pirate. So there's so many questions, as there always is with a new Star Wars series, and there's lots of supposition and there's lots of things it could be. But in some ways, I like that we've had very little information coming out about Skeleton Crew, so that we can go into this with a bit of a fresh head about it. And apart from Vane, it's pretty much all new characters, which I think is always a good thing. And I think that's partly what did it for Mando when it first came out, was obviously that was all fresh characters. We did have some that eventually came into it, but the very beginning of it was about a character that we'd never come across before. And I think that's possibly something that's quite important with Star Wars, for the fans, just to give them that little bit of originality.
Indeed. How do you feel if we don't get Hondo Ohnaka till the very last scene of the last episode, and then a few weeks later we find out that this series is cancelled?
Oh, I would cry. I would sob like a baby. It's for me, if they're going to do pirates, Hondo is very much these days. When you look at his role at Galaxy's Edge and everything, he epitomises piracy as we've seen it on Star Wars. So I think it'd be really disappointing if we don't see him. But if they tell a good story and he doesn't fit into that, then fine. But I would love to see him, and I think it'd be a really nice bit for the fans. But then again, if he ended up just doing one scene, a bit like Zeb, to actually see him there in the series would still be great.
Ian, what do you think the chances are that we see some sort of Imperial Remnant / First Order shenanigans going on in the background here?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll see something. I do think we'll see something because obviously this show is tied to the Mandoverse and that obviously plot line. I do think we might see Thrawn. I don't know. We might see another Imperial warlord. Maybe we see Mando at the end. I think it will lead to something because obviously we've got Mando the movie, we've got Ahsoka obviously season 2, which I believe someone said the other day is going to start. Is going to come out after the Mando movie, which is a bit of a bummer. But yeah, I do think we'll see some sort of Imperial remnant. Potentially a warlord. Maybe we see Din hunting a warlord, so maybe set up the new movie coming out.
And do you think we see any other Jedi? Obviously, they have hinted that these young kids find the Jedi Temple, perhaps, and that maybe Jude Law is a Jedi, maybe not. But the Jedi have been mentioned in the build-up of the show, and the Jedi Temple has been shown and mentioned in the trailer. So do you think we could see any other Jedi? So I suppose in the galaxy at this time, we could see Luke Skywalker, or depending on what's happened, where we are in the timeline, it could be Ahsoka, or if not Ahsoka, if she's already gone to Peridea, then it could be Ezra Bridger, who's returned from Peridea.
I think Ezra's probably the best shout. I do think Ezra's probably the best shout. I think this will be set after Ahsoka, so I do think there's a good shout. Maybe it is Ezra. Yeah, I think Ezra could probably be the best shout if we do see a Jedi. He might be sympathetic towards hearing about missing kids. Obviously, with him being missing for years, that he could come and aid them in their quest to get home.
What's your thoughts, Jason? Which Jedis would you like to see in this show?
Yeah, I definitely think Ezra's a good shout, and it would tie in perfectly if he's just come back from Peridea. Obviously, if this ties in with Thrawn returning and Thrawn's starting to do his naughty sort of things, maybe, Ezra's set himself on a task to find some sort of Jedi archives or Jedi way so that he can maybe rescue Sabine and Ahsoka. So there's so many different things that this story could go. It could completely ignore what's gone there and be a standalone. But if they are going to include the Jedi, I suspect it will be a character that we may have come across before.
Indeed, indeed. Well, we wait with eager minds awaiting our next snippets of information regarding Skeleton Crew, which of course debuts this December on Disney Plus. Moving on to sort of what we've been watching this week, or sort of lately, Star Wars wise. As everybody knows who listens to the show, I've been enjoying Star Wars back on the big screen. Every week there's a new Star Wars movie out in the cinema. They've been in canon order. So in August I watched Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. I watched Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith at the beginning of September. Rogue One in the middle of September. And then just on Friday night just gone I watched Star Wars, written and directed by George Lucas, the 1977 classic, which was great to see on the big screen. I hadn't seen it on the big screen since 1997, so that was very good to see. I did give it a little review on Letterboxd. I did say, the masterful beginning of a hero's journey in a galaxy far, far away, George Lucas pulls off the impossible, crafting something so magical, mythological, alien, and distant, while making it feel so real and right in front of us. It was my thoughts on that. Jason, have you been watching any Star Wars this week?
I've actually been rewatching the films, and earlier today rewatched Rogue One. So I'm sort of working my way through the films at the moment on Disney Plus, and really enjoyed it. Rogue One's one of those films that I think I can watch over and over again and still love. And obviously, I'm sort of gearing myself up for season 2 of Andor. Seeing K2SO just made me think I can't wait to see how Andor meets K2SO, which I'm pretty sure is going to be a part of the Andor series. The films, that's the thing, whether it's in the cinema or on television, getting the chance to re-explore them is always good as far as I'm concerned.
It is indeed. As I said, you've watched Rogue One. I watched Rogue One sort of middle September on the 14th, and then I watched Star Wars on the 20th. So, having watched Rogue One on the big screen and the ending, and then, within a week later, watching Star Wars, which obviously it flows perfectly into it, but actually watching those two so close together on the big screen again was like a pretty magical feeling, which I hadn't done before on the big screen. So, like, watching those two so close together. Iain, what you've been watching Star Wars lately? Any reruns of any Disney Plus series, maybe?
I actually rewatched the D Squad arc from the Clone Wars the other day. I don't know why. It's one of my guilty pleasures, that arc with Colonel Meba Gascon and his droid counterparts. I always love that arc. I don't know why. It's quite fun.
I
With the
agree.
with the pit droid and obviously R2D2 was there for the big character and that. But no, it's a great arc. I've always loved Meba Gascon. I always wonder what happened to him after that arc. So yeah, I've rewatched that obviously at home, which was good fun. I just put it on. I put an episode on every morning when I was getting ready for work, just to have a bit of a laugh before I went to work. And yeah, no, I enjoy that arc. It's quite it's different, but it's quite fun.
I'd probably say it's the most George Lucas the Clone Wars gets, is that story arc. And it is so much fun. It's wild, wacky, fun. Also quite grounded and quite, like, heartwarming as well, I suppose. And obviously R2D2 saving the day, as he does in a lot of Star Wars stories. I also watched a documentary this week. It's called I'm George Lucas, a Connor Ratcliffe story. So basically, Connor Ratcliffe is an actor slash comedian who started sort of a stage show where it's called the George Lucas Talk Show, where he portrays his version of George Lucas. So he's in character as George Lucas. He's a talk show host. He's a retired filmmaker, talk show host, and he has guests come on who are themselves, and he then, like, interviews them as George Lucas. So it's quite sort of weird and wonderful, shall we say. I've never actually seen it myself, but I know obviously it was doing quite well. Sort of every month it would happen in New York, I think, and then it would travel certain places to theatres and I know that it's had its own sort of shown at some Comic Cons. And I do know that in COVID, when COVID hit, it became like an online thing where like it took a whole new life, with the likes of Kevin Smith on the best, um, like lots of people. Whoopi Goldberg, I think, even appeared on it when it was in the COVID era, um, and sort of the documentaries about Conor Radcliffe and how sort of like his journey to sort of making this wacky and crazy show and how he still does it to this day. So I definitely recommend checking that out. It would be really cool, and we're working on getting the producer of the documentary to come on the show to talk about it, which would be really cool. And I think I watched that on Vimeo. That's where that was available. But if you just search "I'm George Lucas: A Conor Radcliffe Story," I'm sure you'll find out where you can stream it. I don't know if you're familiar with the George Lucas talk show, Jason.
No, I'm not. It's a really interesting concept, that, because let's face it, George Lucas is famed for being a man of very few words. So, as a talk show host, yeah, that's got to be quite an imaginative sort of portrayal. I might have to go and have a look online for this because it sounds like the sort of thing I would definitely love. I'm surprised I didn't find it. It's funny you say about during lockdown. Um, whilst lockdown was on, and obviously I had a lot of time with the kids. One of the things we did is listen to a lot of music on like YouTube and that. And one of my favourite ones was putting on Weird Al with The Saga Begins, and I listened to that earlier today, and I love that song. So that was one of my guilty pleasures today.
What a great time! Moving on from that, let's just move into housekeeping. Ian, we'll go over to you. Sort of any new Star Wars purchases or Star Wars reads, or is anything new that you want to talk about Star Wars wise that we haven't covered?
No purchases since the last time I was on. To be fair, I've just been taking stock really. I'm currently rereading the first Aftermath book. I just fancied it, to be fair. So yeah, no, currently no purchases at the moment. But yeah, no, I'm rereading Aftermath at the moment and just enjoying that, to be fair.
Awesome. Jason, any new purchases or anything new that you're consuming or anything that you've seen that we haven't talked about?
Now, obviously, at the moment, I'm getting very, very excited because they've announced details of Twilight of the Republic, the next series of Star Wars Unlimited. So I'm going to be doing my pre-order for the pre-release and the starter pack. So I'm looking forward to having a go with that and trying to build some more decks. I need to go down and try and get some more cards because I need to get more and more into this, but I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, if anyone gets a chance, have a look out for the Star Wars Unlimited stuff. There's a lot of it going back into the stores at the moment, as we discussed last time. So if you want to try and get cards, now's a good time to try and do it. Um, Also, if anyone's in the Dorset area, I should mention that Jedi Archives have put up, they've got another saber building day coming up. I'm just trying to double check the date so that I can give you that. I believe it's next month. I think it's very, very close. So I'm hoping to possibly pop down, maybe do some filming for us to put up on the YouTube whilst I can as well down there, so that people can see what Jedi Archives do with the saber building because it's a lot of fun. And obviously, starting to plot and plan ready for next year's um, Dorchester Strikes Back, which I'm already coming up with new ideas and reaching out to a few people. And I can't. Oh, where's the date? October the 12th. They've got 2 sessions. So if anyone fancies building their own lightsaber, I think the price is £225 or £224.99, which obviously gets you the saber, all the gubbins, and the 5 custom parts to put together. And it's just a really fun experience.
Certainly does look it. I was in Forbidden Planet this weekend up in Newcastle, where they did have plenty of Shadows of the Galaxy, so that's the second set of Star Wars Limited cards available. They also had fresh set of booster packs for Spark of Rebellion, the first set, so looks like there was distribution problems, or maybe getting themselves sorted out, which is fantastic. Other than that, no real new Star Wars purchases for me. Do stay tuned though, because we could be appearing on BBC Radio 2's Midnight Mastermind, so more on that in the coming episodes, but maybe in the next 2 weeks we could be appearing on there, which will be really, really cool. That takes us to our fact of the episode. It's a new, we haven't done this before. I'm just thinking it could be fun to just, could be a normal fact, or I might try and keep them sort of weird and funny, I suppose. But this week's and the first ever Star Wars episode fact is that in 1996, during early production of Star Wars The Phantom Menace, George Lucas wanted Tupac Shakur to play Jedi Master Mace Windu. Sadly, obviously Tupac died before his audition, and as we all know, Samuel L. Jackson ends up getting the role and plays a very, very mean and fantastic Mace Windu. Ian, had you heard that before? Had you heard that fun fact?
I had, yeah. I had heard that Tupac was obviously in line for the role. I don't know. Yeah, I had heard that before. Yeah, it's a cool one. It'd be interesting to see how he would have approached Mace Windu. But yeah, no, that is a cool fact that maybe not a lot of people know.
I think that's the most George Lucas thing ever. That George Lucas was like, no, I want Tupac Shakur to be Mace Windu. I think it's just really awesome. Jason, did you know that fun fact? And how do you feel about it?
I think I'd heard it, and like you say, it's just one of those really cool sort of things. And yeah, it makes you wonder all these different people that could have been in Star Wars. Because if I remember rightly, I think Al Pacino went for the role of Han Solo originally. So there's so many, if they ever did a what if cartoon just with different actors playing different characters, how different could that galaxy far, far away have been?
Indeed, and don't give too many of them away, because that might be next week's fact, Jason. Well, it's a new segment. We need to keep it going. We need to milk it for all it's got. That brings an end to the episode. Jason, is there anything else you want to talk about Star Wars wise, and where can the people find you on social media?
As always, it's at Hondo Ling, and just keep enjoying that galaxy far, far away.
Ian, anything on the episode we haven't discussed that you want to talk about? And if not, just let us know where the people can find you on social media.
I am on social media at Star Wars Iain. If you ever want to talk Star Wars with me, I'm more than happy to oblige.
And you can find myself on social media. I am on Twitter, or now known as X, at Geordie Jedi Pete. That is the same on Instagram. And you can also find the podcast on X at Boars Star. You can also find the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, at Star Wars Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Music, please leave us a top review, 5 stars and a lovely sentence. Keep us smiling all week. It only takes you a few moments. And as I always say, it helps people find the show. And if you are listening on any of the other wonderful podcast applications out there, again, just leave us a top review, leave us a nice little sentence. Again, keeps us smiling all week, takes you a few moments, and it helps people find the show. Also, stay tuned to our socials, as our Patreon is getting set up and coming soon. It's a great way to help us with the show and get some extra content. But that brings an end to this week's Star Wars. May the Force be with you all. And remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.